Welcome, the chair.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin. For purposes of introduction, because I came in late, I first will start with apologizing. I departed from home the same time I always do, but there was a crazy traffic along Thika Road and Langata Road. Tracy Okal is caught up in the same traffic. She tells me she's on her way. So there's a very crazy traffic, which we reject. Yes, we reject everything. Yes, concerning I'm supposed to talk about the novel, my interaction with the novel, and how I found it. Yes, so I start by bragging, being the only person who had the physical copy from the library. Yeah, it's from the library, but I always yes, I always have the privilege of getting the physical copies while you're reading the virtual. Yeah, yeah, this one.
That's the privilege of the
Unfortunately, yes. I first interacted with Chimamanda, of course, from Professor. There's a girl, a lady from the book. Wangeshi is the one who had read the book, and she recommended it, saying it was a good book. She was a bit emotional while describing it. She was describing the the problems or the casualties or the disadvantages of war. And I had very keen interest in doing it. I read the first 2 chapters, but unfortunately, as I'll explain later, I was kind of not understanding what the book is all about. Unlike the previous books I was reading then, I always take the trouble to search the author online. But for this one, I decided to get everything that I need to understand the book from the pages. So yeah, that was a long time ago, probably 2 months ago. And then when we were discussing on the book that we should bring to next session, the book that came to mind was Chimamanda. I said it was an interesting fiction. I had not read it. I was relying on what Ongeshi told me. And truly, even before I make comments about the book, I must admit it's probably one of the most interesting books I have read. Probably that's the advantage of getting recommendations from professor's library. All the books will be interesting. So the first thing that I did with the online or the virtual copy is to read the reviews people have had about the book, about the novel, sorry. And I found this very interesting one. I don't remember the exact person who made the comment, but he was saying that it was an organization, was saying that Chimamanda has a very interesting way of merging the readers or the readers with the emotions of the different characters in the book, and I can confirm that. So that was one of the most genius things I saw with her writings, or probably with the novel. So she has this way of bringing a character and then taking about 20 pages or 10 pages or 2 chapters trying to describe the character, the personality of the character, such that when you're reading it, you're already picturing the character, or you already love the character. So we start with master or hate the character, yeah. Loving or hating the character. So we start with Ugu, the way he's described, the way the character grows within the chapters, and then finally the way he comes out strongly towards the end of the book, or the relevance is felt towards the end of the book. We go to Olana. As much as she's brought much later in chapter 2 or chapter 3, the relevance she has with the book or with the whole context or with the novel, the whole context of the novel, in a way that she's trying to portray something that only comes out later in the novel, something about the class, the stratification, the class stratification, the haves and the haves not. She's saying some things, but the things only portray later on when the war begins. She's uncomfortable with the father being rich, but when you are reading the book, you don't get the relevance of it all. It only turns up when the war has started and when they are fighting anything. And then another thing about the novel, and probably the second novel we read of this type, is the way different writers, and probably it's a thing about the young authors, I would say, I wish to be corrected if I'm wrong. We did the Beneath the Lion's Gaze. They have based the fictions on some things that have happened in the country. So we had Prof.Mohamed basing that on Mengiste, sorry, Mengiste, not Nadifa, Mengiste. Mengiste basing the novel Beneath the Lion's Gaze on the, what is it called? Yeah, of Ethiopian, yeah, civil war. Yeah, Haile Selassie, the thing about getting him out of office. And then we have Chimamanda, and I checked she's 46 years old, so I could call her a young author, basing this novel on the Biafran War, the 1967 to 1970 Biafran War. And I saw it probably as a way of writing a very good novel. When you're basing it on things which actually happened and then marrying them with fiction, it produces a very good novel. Like we have Half of a Yellow Sun and Beneath the Lion's Gaze. So one thing I realized with the novel. And then onto the way she writes it, I feel as if she's telling a story, and she's telling it with the most unsophisticated language. You find she's not philosophical with the language. She doesn't use it as much as there's nothing probably as difficult words. Like here, I feel as if she's using the most plain of English, describing the characters in the, describing not the characters, the events in the novel. And when I was done with the novel, I read some of the reviews, and one of them was that she's using very plain English and sophisticated language, but very eye-catching or mind-boggling narrative of how the war and everything has happened. And then onto the title of the novel, Half of a Yellow Sun. When I was reading it, I was confused. I never knew why the sun was half. I know why the sun is yellow. I never knew why the sun was half until I got to page 212, when there's the first, page 202, when there's the first mention of Half of a Yellow Sun. So I don't know how she came up with the title, but I would imagine she had the title when she was starting the book, the novel. So the fact that she only put it out in page 202, I feel as if that was very genius of her. So keeping it a secret, reading the book, you don't understand why the yellow sun is there. If you are a person who has not done any research on the Biafran War, you don't understand why the title is there until page 202, when there is that Biafran flag with the label of a half, the label of the it's in the online version, the label of the flag that is in the army's uniform being of the half the yellow sun. And again, it comes back to thing I said, she has a way of bringing up characters and then the relevance of the characters being felt as we are concluding. So because I feel as if she used Kina Master, Professor as a something, Ugu, the likes of Chief Okonji, Professor Ezeka, Okemo, Professor Lehman, Dr. Patel, to develop something that becomes very fascinating, that comes out very fascinatingly in chapters, probably chapter 7 and chapter 8. So for me, that was very genius. And then another thing about the author, Chimamanda, yes, Chimamanda, was the way she would get into the emotions of all the characters. So she's describing the character of Ugu, she's describing the character of Master, and then And then in describing everything, she has a way of showing the emotional beats of all of them. So, and in a way, it's also humorous. So I just remembered something about Ugu when he's first employed by master, hiding bits of chicken in his pocket so he can take to his sister and his crush, probably allegedly girlfriend, back at home. So I found it very wholesome. You're giving us a character, and then you're telling us how the character is thinking, how the character feels, how the character, everything about the character, where the character has been born, the teenage period of the character, his very intrusive thoughts and probably very pervasive thoughts, and everything about the character. And then we go to Master. There's a mention of how he's born, how he gets educated, and the things he feels and the things that he's fighting for. You go to people like Okemo, the poet, the inspiration he gets to write the poets, and then you find people like Richard in the as you're coming to the conclusion of the book. He's writing a book which has been recorded by Chimamanda. The world was silent when we died, when we all died, something of the sort. So I found that being very genius of Chimamanda. And then I would mention something about the reason why we are having the war. And it's interesting that there's the revolution in the novel, and we're having probably a revolution in the country, the Gen Z revolution. But my understanding of this revolution is kind of different from the one that we have been having, or the one that we are currently having. So putting the book into context, she's describing events that took place in 1967 to 1970. And probably the biggest challenge that was there at that period was a period was the issue of tribalism. And now facing our, okay, the charts are kind of confusing, but it's okay. But looking at the challenges that we are having right now, and the challenges that were there in 1967, and the dangers ethnicity has brought up in our country, in our continent, I found this book really not refreshing, but it was provocative. I would say provocative. The fact that we are having people in 1967 fighting against tribalism, the fact that we are having very intelligent people, educated people, not intelligent, probably educated people, but who are still held up in the thing about tribalism. People like Master. Master is educated, but he's still tribal. He's trying to push the agenda of the Igbo people. We have people like, who else? Would I mention? Richard. He's a white man. He has become a very integrated. He has integrated with the Igbo community. He's speaking Igbo, and he's proud to be Igbo. And he's moving that agenda of tribalism based on the Igbo. We have the Hausa, who are killing people mercilessly for nothing, actually for nothing, but on the grounds of tribalism. So for me, having based the novel on such a scene, and then probably at the end of it all, coming up with the effects of a war, to me that was a wake-up call. And probably it could have been a wake-up call then. It still is a wake-up call right now. In Kenya, there is still tribalism. There is still in South Africa, there's still tribalism. In Uganda, there's still tribalism. Currently, we're having the politics deputy president calling for unity, but not unity of all Kenyans, unity on the basis of tribes. I found that really eye-opening, and probably it's a wake-up call for everyone, all leaders, all Kenyans, probably all Africans, aspiring Africans, to shun tribalism at all costs. And then there's something I wanted to mention about, no, I'll remember it as we proceed. So yes, thank you. That is all about the novel. I'll be mentioning everything else as we and the thing, the author being able to put yeah, I remembered something. Being able to put things into, in as much as it's a fiction, being able to describe things on the basis of what was happening probably around the world. So we have Mijamadu coming from Pakistan from training. I really found it very, I feel as if she was engrossed engrossed in the novel when she was doing it, because she's imagining things as they could have been then. As much as it's fiction, it gives life to the fiction. Fact that we're having people like Mijamadu, we're having people like Chifokonji who are going to London to study, and then it's still fiction, because I would expect fiction to be about things which don't exist, probably, or countries which don't exist. So I found it very, very genius of the very intelligent of the other. So I'll be mentioning the other things as we proceed. Back to the moderator.